Oh, there we are. This broadcast is live. I'll just wait a couple of seconds because I know it takes a minute or two for everybody to join into the room. So yeah, lots of people joining us. Great. Okay, well, I'm going to kick off. So good afternoon, everyone. 1 o'clock on this beautiful Wednesday. I hope it's lovely and sunny where you all are. Thank you so much for joining us today. For those of you who don't know, my name is Louise Warren. I'm the COO for EventWell, and we're absolutely delighted to be with you guys today, running the Wellness Revival Festival alongside PA Life. And this session is going to be all about calm and resilience, and we've got the lovely Elaine Batho, who is a life coach, retreat specialist, who's going to kind of talk us through some top tips and bits and pieces to remain calm and resilient, especially through these challenging times. Just a bit of housekeeping. Obviously, I know you're probably all going to be on mute, but if you've got any questions or anything that crops up for you during the session with Elaine, please feel free. At the bottom of the Zoom screen, you'll see a little chat box. There's also a little Q&A box, so you can just click on one of those boxes and you can type in a question, and I will monitor those throughout the session. And then once Elaine has finished her presentation to us, then we can jump into the Q&A at the end. But I will stop waffling for now, and I'll pass over to lovely Elaine. Hello, Elaine. Thank you.
Hello, thank you, Louise. Thank you for the introduction. And you took the words out of my mouth about what I was going to say to do with Q&A, because I'm going to hit you with quite a bit of information. So you might find that something comes up for you. So in that moment, just write your questions and we'll come back to you at the end. I've factored in plenty of time if I can stay succinct and to the point, which is always a challenge. So factor plenty of time in the end to do some Q&A with you, because it's such a important topic, I think, for all of us right now. So firstly, I just want to kind of hit you with the definition of resilience, which is that it's the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, or in other words, toughness. And I think all of us can benefit from resilience in our lives, particularly with what's been hitting us in 2020. So I'm going to share with you over the next 45 minutes or so about how we can become more resilient. I'm going to share with you my formula, which I call the CALM formula, which will talk you through what sort of tips and tools that you can do to help you to stay calm amongst chaos. And also we're going to talk a little bit about mastery goals. So this may all sound very disjointed, but it will, I promise you, it'll all come together. But we are going to break this down into kind of 3 sections that we're going to talk about, and then we'll bring it all together at the end. But firstly, I want to talk a little bit about myself, just to give you some context, and you think, well, who the hell is Elaine and why is she talking to me today? So my background is in the events and hospitality industry, and in fact, I still class myself as part of that industry, because a big part of what I do is retreats and helping other people run events and retreats. But when I was in my early 30s, I suffered really badly with stress. And if I was going to put this kind of social media spin, the hypey word that we all use today, I suffered with burnout. I had anxiety, I suffered panic attacks, and I had totally debilitating irritable bowel syndrome. Like sometimes I couldn't even leave my house because I'd be so worried I'd mess myself. And at my early 30s, it was just so life altering. And whilst I was under a lot of pressure with my work and job, and that was a massive conduit towards what was going on, there was a lot of things that I actually could have done to make myself better. Now, make myself better, I did. I went for cognitive behavioral therapy, which is, if you've not heard of it, it's a type of talking therapy that really helps you to look at your mindset in a different way. And it's been over 10 years since I've suffered with any form of anxiety, panic attacks, or IBS. And that's because of the work that I did with the CBT and what I've done to help myself recover from that in years following that. So from what I've learned, I then set up a business to help other people to live a healthier and happier life. And that's why I'm in front of you today. The events industry is very close to my heart, and I know, well, we all know what's going on in the world at the moment. So if I can help you in some way with some tips and some advice, or any questions you have for me, then it's my absolute pleasure to be here today to do that for you. So the first thing I want to talk about in our kind of topics is to talk about stress. Now, I'm not going to wax lyrical about stress for 45 minutes. You know, there is far too many things in stress that we can cover, and I'm sure someone else is going to cover this in the talks today, or you can certainly Google lots of information about it. But it's so important to understand the impact on stress on our day-to-day lives, and if we're trying to achieve some goals. So firstly, I'm going to do a little test on you. So don't worry, it's not a difficult test. We're going to test our breathing, okay? So I'm going to time you in a moment to count your breaths, and a breath will be an inhale and an exhale. And we're going to do it for 30 seconds. And at the end of the 30 seconds, I want you to remember your number, write it down if you need to. Try not to change your breath, just breathe normally, okay? So hopefully that's clear. I'm going to just make sure I can see the timer. No, it's not doing that. I'll do it on my phone. Bear with me 1 second, because accuracy is very important here. Okay, so is everybody ready? We're going to start counting our breaths now. Okay, stop counting. If you write your number down, or just make sure that you remember it. It always makes me laugh when I do this exercise. So I think if anyone's joining the webinar when I'm like midway through this, if I think, why the hell are we sitting in silence? Anyway, the reason why I was doing that test, I'm going to come back to you on that in a moment, so you have a better understanding of why I've just made you count your breathing. But I want to talk a little bit about why stress is really important. So there was a survey done in 2018 by the Mental Health Foundation, and they found that 74% of people stated that they were either stressed or felt completely overwhelmed in their life at some point in that year. And even more worrying, 81% of people that felt that were women. So I know, as well as you do, that the stress that we're feeling and that overwhelmed feeling that we're feeling in 2020 is going to be way higher than 74% and 81%. And in fact, there's loads of surveys and things that are being done at the moment. And I'm sure we're going to get lots more information about the impacts of COVID on us over the next few months. But it's so important for us to realise that we are all living with excess stress. Now, when I was in the midst of my stressful time, I didn't realise I was stressed. And it sounds ridiculous. How can you not realise that a panic attack is a side effect of stress or anxiety? I had no idea. I just assumed it because I was drinking too much or having late nights or whatever it was. So you might not actually realize how stressed you are, but all of us are living with excess cortisol, the stress hormone in our body. It's impacting the way that we think. It's impacting our relationships with others. It's impacting our emotions, and it's certainly impacting our physical health. And in fact, 90% of the top diseases today, like heart disease, as an example, can be linked and attributed to stress. So it is in all of our benefits, physically, mentally, to really do something about our stress. So resilience doesn't mean that we don't get stressed, but in order to be thinking in a more helpful way, in order to be able to achieve the goals that we want to set, in order to be successful in our lives and to be happy, we need to find some way to manage our stress. Doesn't mean we don't get stressed. I still get stressed today, and I've done a lot of work on this on myself, and I teach this to other people. But of course I get stressed, I'm human. It's impossible not to, but it's learning those tools and those tips that are going to help you to stay calm and be able to achieve those goals. So let's just come back to that breath test now, and the reasons why I've done this on you. So I want you to take the number that you counted, and I want you to double that number. So if you have a number that is between 11 and 15 to 17, if I'm being generous today, that is an indicator that you're breathing normally. Okay, so what that means is that your stress levels are probably pretty average. If your breath count was less than 11, you're probably in quite a relaxed state. If your breathing is above 15 and certainly above 17 and going higher than that, you might be feeling quite stressed. Now, the body never lies. The breath is such a great indicator to how we feel. And even if you're in a pattern of breathing quite quickly and shallowly anyway, that is actually going to tell your body that it needs to be almost ready to fight or flight. So it's in our interest to learn to breathe slower and deeper. Now, this is a really great tool that I share quite a lot with people to check in with how you're feeling. It doesn't mean you have to count your breaths, but what it does mean is consciously take some breaks throughout your day where you can just notice how you're breathing. If you're breathing shallowly and slowly, we can override the stress influence on us by breathing slowly and deeply. So if there's nothing else that you take away from what I share with you today, that is definitely one of the top things that are up there to help you to stay calm. So talking about calm, I'm going to move on to the next section of my talk, and that is the calm formula that I use to help us stay calm. I love an analogy and I also love an acronym. So calm is an acronym that is a great way to remember these tools to help you to stay calm in chaos. So we all know how the word is spelt. So I'll start with the first letter, which is C. And this represents control. Control the controllables. Now, if I had £1 for every time I have said that mantra, which is kind of my mantra for this year, I would be a millionaire by now, because this is one of the most powerful things that we can do when life gets challenging. And as we know, 2020 has been incredibly challenging. But all of us as human beings, we are hardwired to feel safe and secure. And we have some pretty skewy thought processes that kind of try to help us to do that. So a couple of things I've talked about a lot in all the talks that I've been doing over the last few months, you may have heard them elsewhere as well, is we can look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you don't know it, definitely Google it after this talk. If you do know it, apologies, I'm going to repeat it again. But fundamentally, it is a pyramid which talks about the fundamental human needs. And at the very bottom of that is our security and our safety. So things like shelter, food, water, and at the beginning of COVID, toilet paper. Like people, there's a reason why people were hoarding toilet paper, because it made them feel safe. So why am I talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs when I'm talking about control? It's all linked. And another graphic you might have talked about, another model you might have heard talked about, is the circle of influence. So again, Google this if you're not aware of it, but it's very simplistic. It's literally a large circle with a smaller circle inside. So we can look at it as the smaller circle is inside is the things that we can control, and the larger circle is the things that we can't control. When we live like that, like most of us do, we are living as victims to circumstance. When we increase that inner circle and we make that the largest surface area and the outer circle becomes smaller, then we're back in control. So I know I haven't got a graphic to talk about this, so you have to use your powers of your imagination. But when we talk about what we can control and what we can't control, well, we certainly can't control the outcome of a global pandemic individually. We can control the way that we show up, whether we wear a mask or not, or whether we put ourselves in danger, or we're spreading it by self-isolating. We can't control the weather. We can watch the news report, we can carry an umbrella, we can wear a coat. We can't control what people say to us, but we can decide what we let in. We can decide how we're going to respond to something. But so many of us get caught up in the external stuff that we can't control. And that in itself will trigger you into uncertainty. You'll be challenging that fundamental bottom layer of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the human needs. You'll be feeling unsafe, and ultimately you'll be feeling stressed. So the top of this tip is to control the controllables. What can you control? And that really is only you. So when you're faced with adversity or challenge, grief, redundancy, whatever's coming at you, you know, we all know life is challenging. Just bring that focus back on what can I control? So I can control what I put into my body. So if you're drinking copious amounts of wine every evening to help you to relax, bear in mind that that is a depressant. That is going to have an impact on your mental well-being. So if you want to control the way that you feel and you want to feel better, cut back the wine. That's just a small example, but we really are the masters of our ship, the masters of our destiny. And sometimes we can feel like we're not, and that life's, you know, the rug's been pulled away from us and we're out of control, but we're not. We're always in control of ourselves. So just remind yourself of those little things that you can control and bring that kind of certainty back into yourself. Okay, so the next point is, we've got two here. I couldn't decide on the best. They're both really important. So it's acceptance and adaptability. So like I was just saying, like life is challenging. Like we know life is challenging. And like, let's be honest, there is only one certainty in life, and that is change. We forget that we're part of nature. We forget that we're part of this evolutionary process, and everything is always changing. What we're going through right now will not be like this in tomorrow, next week, next year. Everything's always changing. And in fact, another mantra I used to say to myself right in the heights of when I was really struggling was, it won't always be like this. And that's something that's so key to remember. But amongst all of this change and all this challenge, we might not like what's happening, but if we can accept it, then it helps us to find peace, and we can move forward and we can move with it. We can move through it. So acceptance is really important. The second part of this, adaptability. Now, I think if there is one mindset or one skill set that we can master in our life, then adaptability is key. If we can be adaptable, my goodness me, life is going to be a lot easier in every stage of it. We all know those people that say, well, I've always done it like this. Those are the people that are going to have a really bumpy ride, because as I just say, life is constantly changing and evolving, and we need to constantly change and evolve. Now, if you look at the businesses that are prospering at the moment, apart from toilet roll companies, obviously, but you look at the companies that have adapted their business, or the buzzword at the moment, pivot. We all have had to change and adapt our lifestyles to fit in with the current circumstances. And the companies that are doing really well have done amazing adaptations to their business, and you know, they're listening to their customers and they're giving them what people need at this point. And we can apply that to anything in our life. This isn't necessarily about work and business. This is about how can you adapt to the circumstances that you're being challenged with. So acceptance and adaptation are really, really key in this calm formula. The next part of it is the letter L, and that stands for learn. Now, I have a very strong belief that the reason why we're on this planet is to learn and to grow. And part of evolution, and whatever the bigger reason is for all us being here, I'm not philosophical enough to answer that question, but I certainly believe that everything is an opportunity to learn and to grow. So just look back over the last few months. What have you learned about yourself? I've certainly learned loads about myself, particularly at the times when we had to do literally nothing in the first few weeks of lockdown. You know, I was faced with a lot of painful truths that perhaps I hadn't been looking at because I've been so busy. But I've learned through those experiences, and I'm now starting to put things into place that will better my life for it. I've had loads of clients that have said to me that they've had new realizations. I had one client that even said to me, she said, "Oh, Elaine, I didn't realize I was so burnt out. I was just used to it." And she said, "I just can't go back to that now." Maybe you've had a similar realization too. So whilst we can't connect the dots forward when things are happening to us, when the shit hits the fan, for choice of a better word, I hope that's swearing's okay, Louise. Sorry, I should have asked before. But when we're thrown a curveball, we can't connect those dots forward, and we can't see where that's going to lead to us. But I bet if you look back on any point of your life when there's been adversity, maybe there's been travesty, there's grief, whatever's happened, I bet you can look back and you can say, wow, I've learned loads from this experience. I'm a better person because of that experience. Certainly, if I wouldn't be sat here in front of you today, if I hadn't suffered with panic attacks, anxiety, and IBS. So everything is happening for a reason, but it's important for us to look back to learn and grow. You know, so if we can change that view to say, what is this teaching me? What am I learning? How can I grow from this experience? Again, we're going to get so much more out of the challenges that life throws at us. The final part of the CALM formula is M for mindset. So mindset is absolutely fundamental if we want to feel good. We're not really taught this stuff in school. If you've got some very awakened parents, maybe they did a lot of work on this with you, maybe they didn't. Mine didn't. And I really struggled with my mindset. And interestingly, it took just 10 weeks of cognitive behavioral therapy looking at my mindset to switch off the years of suffering that I'd had with anxiety. I can't stress enough how important the power of our mindset is. So to demonstrate that to you, I'm going to do a little exercise with you. You may or may not have heard of this before. This is done by Tony Robbins, who is the biggest life coach in the world, big in stature as well as in followers. And I think it's such a succinct way to demonstrate what I mean. Okay, so what I'm going to get you to do in a moment is I'm going to get you to look around your room, and I want you to take in all of the red things that you can see. Okay, so, and I want you to count all those red things. Okay, so do that now. Take a good look around, really scan your room. What can you see that is red? Any shades of red, count them up, maybe write it down if it's easy for you to write the number down. Keep looking, take that all in. Okay, now close your eyes. Now I know I can't hear you, but I want you to shout your answer out. Humour me here. I want you to shout your answer out. And the question I'm going to ask you is, how many blue things did you see? Okay, you can open your eyes. Now you're probably going, what the hell is Elaine doing? I didn't see any blue things. You told me to count red things. Well, that is exactly the point of that exercise. Whatever you focus on, wherever your energy goes, is where you're going to find your answers. So I asked you to focus on the red things. So you are only looking for red things. You're not going to look for the blue things because I've asked you to look for red. If you go through your life looking for the negative, you're expecting things to be bad, well, guess what you're going to find? It's really important for us to focus on the mindsets that give us joy. Now, I'm not saying you should be saying everything's great when it really is not, but there is always something that can be found within a situation that can lift the way that you feel. Gratitude is banded around as one of the cure-alls for misery. And honestly, it is impossible to be down and grateful at the same time. So even when life is challenging you and you are really stuck, there is always something that you can appreciate. Every one of us can switch on a tap and get clean drinking water. If that's all you're grateful for today, that is a first step. That is amazing. There are plenty of mindsets that you can focus on that will enable you to live a more happy, contented, productive life. And it's just starting to find the different ways to think. So let me just recap on the CALM formula here. So we've got C for control. Control the controllables. Control what you can, which is you. Take care of yourself in the best way that you can. And remember to focus on what you can focus on and what you can actually make a difference on. Accept and adapt. So accept what's going on around you. You don't have to like it, but you can accept it. And become adaptable. Allow yourself to bend and shift with the changes that go. Pivot, as choice of a better word, so that you can flow with the changes. We become part of this evolution as rather than fighting against it. We can't fight against evolution. What can you learn from the experience? What is it teaching you? How can you look at this through different eyes? What if this actually is helping you to create something that is beyond your wildest dreams? I never realized in the height of my anxiety that I'd be sat here today doing what I absolutely love, sharing my story and talking with you, helping you to learn what I've learned. How do you know that what you're going through right now, or when you're going through something that's really challenging, isn't in fact the most pivotal and best thing that's ever happened to you? What can you learn from this experience? And then finally was mindset. So shifting those mindsets, what can you be grateful for? How can you look at things in a different way? Okay, so I'm going to move on to the final part of the talk. And this is all around goal mastery. So did you start 2020 with these big, grandiose goals of what you wanted to achieve this year? Perhaps you had dreams of a particular holiday or something you wanted to do in your work, or maybe there was, you know, might have been getting married, or there was fitness things that you were wanting to do. So think back to those goals that you set at the beginning of the year. These are still possible. So obviously we can apply the CALM formula to how we work through these, but there is another way that we can do this. And this is something that's called mastery goals. So this may be a new concept to you. It certainly was a new concept to me, and it just blew my mind because, again, it's something else that we're not necessarily taught in school. I always like to recommend books that I've read and have really helped me. And one of those that I'm going to recommend to you now is something called Growth Mindset by Carol Dweck. This book should be in every school. Every teacher should have it on their desk. Every parent should read this. It is phenomenal at helping you to look at things in a different way. But we're generally brought up to work towards a performance goal. And I'll give you a little bit more of a breakdown of mastery goals in a moment. But performance goals are when you set yourself a task to achieve, and it's either a success or it's a fail. So when we are, sorry, can I name the name of the author? Yeah, Carol Dweck. So Carol, and the surname is D-W-E-C-K. And it's called Growth Mindset. So yes, what was I saying? Yeah, performance goals. We'll talk about mastery goals and what they mean in a moment, but performance goal is when you are either succeeding or you're failing. Now, we can really beat ourselves up over the head over this. My adorable 7-year-old niece is the prime example of the challenge of a performance goal. She's recently learned to ride a bike. She falls off it all the time, and every time she falls off it, she gets really upset, storms off, and that's it. I'm never riding a bike again, because she's embarrassed. She thinks people are laughing at her. It's too difficult. She doesn't want to do it again. In fact, it's quite funny. She's like the visual representation of what goes on inside my head if I feel like I'm not able to achieve something. But we forget, you know, none of us were born able to walk or talk or run or jump. We've had to learn every single thing that we've experienced. And the performance goals are brilliant, and we do need performance goals. But if we can also include a mastery goal into an overarching umbrella, if you like, of the performance goal, it means that we are never going to lose out. We're never going to fail. Now, failure is really important as part of the journey of growth and learning. Thomas Edison took him like 1,000 attempts to create the light bulb. J.K. Rowling, it took 12 attempts before she got Harry Potter published. And if they'd given up, then we wouldn't, well, we'd probably have light now, and we'd probably have some form of Harry Potter, but it wouldn't have been the same. So when we can apply a mastery goal, it really helps us to keep going, because there's nothing worse. If you feel dejected, you feel like I've been working at this, it's not working. We all want to, you know, we want to give up. It's too much like hard work. And Rafa Nadal, the great tennis player, I love this is his quote. And he says, I always work with a goal, and the goal is to improve as a player and as a person. Now, that is the perfect example of a mastery goal. So a mastery goal is this overarching goal that your performance goals can lead into. Let me give you an example of myself. Okay, so 4 years ago, I started my business, and my dream in my business is to have a retreat center in a hot, sunny country where I can do multiple retreats, where I can bring other people in and teach them how to do retreats. And of course, I get to live in a beautiful, sunny country doing what I love. Now, 4 years on, I am no closer to that goal than I was when I started my business, if I am viewing this as a performance goal. That feels really shitty, and that makes me feel like I've failed, and that's not a nice place to be in. So if I ask myself, actually, what is my overarching goal? Why am I doing this? Why do I actually want a retreat center? What is it that I want to achieve? What do I want to master? So I want to be the coach that changes people's lives. I want to be the woman that helps people find their health and happiness, like I did. I want to coach people to find their way again. So if I apply that as a mastery goal, then everything that I do in my business is feeding into that mastery goal. So therefore I can't fail. So my retreat center is part of that umbrella of a mastery goal. So are the hundreds of hours of coaching that I've done. So are all the posts and the blogs and the articles that I write, all the podcasts that I do, all the talks like this I do. It's all feeding into my overarching goal of being the best coach that I can be to help people change their lives. Now that, to me, feels so much better than saying, I failed because I haven't got this giant retreat center in the Bahamas, as an example. So where can you apply this mastery goal in your life? Think back to the things that you wanted to achieve at the beginning of 2020. And again, this can be personal, it can be professional, it might even be your fitness. I was talking to a client the other day who is wanting to do Couch to 5K. She's so busy with work, she struggles to do it, she runs out of time, and then she's like, oh, I failed, I'm not going to do it now. So I said to her, what is your mastery goal around this? Why are you wanting to do Couch to 5K? And she said, well, I want to get fitter. I want to be able to be outdoors and moving my body. I want to feel those endorphins in my body, but ultimately I want to feel fitter. So I said to her, well, does it matter then if you're doing 20 minutes and whatever distance that is on this Couch to 5K, or even if you're just going outside of the door and you do 5 minutes? Can you see how both of those are feeding into the mastery goal? And that takes the pressure off ourselves. So when we can do that, even if she just ran for 5 minutes, she's still working towards her goal. So think about how you can apply this into your life. So I'm going to wrap this up now, and just to review what we've talked about today, and then I'm going to open the floor to you for any questions. So we went through stress and how stress impacts us, and it's impacting our thinking and it's impacting our emotions. So if we want to create success in our goals, and we want to move forward, and we want to live a life that is happy and congruent with how we want to live it, we do need to look at ways to manage our stress. We can't stop stress, but there are things that we can do. And looking at our breathing is a really great tool that we can use to check in and do almost like a litmus test to see what we can do to, see how we're feeling. Then I talked to you through the calm formula. So we had controlling the controllables, control what you can control, accept the situation and learn to adapt with it, flow with it, if you like. We learn from the experience. What can this experience actually be teaching me? What can I learn? How can I grow from this? We talked about mindsets and choosing the mindsets that are going to help you move forward. It's so easy to focus on the negative and look for all the red things, figuratively speaking. But if we focus on all the things that can really make us feel good and move forward. And then I talked about the way that we view our goals. So if we focus on performance goals, we're going to be really beating ourselves up over the head, particularly in difficult times now. So take a step back, create a mastery goal, feed your performance goal into the mastery goal, and work with both of them. And that way you feel that you're always working towards something and that you can never, ever fail. So that's my little talk for you. I've got 10 minutes to chat if we've got some questions. I did see something just pop up then. I'll just see what that... oh, brilliant, Amy. Thank you. I'm glad you found there's lots to take away. Does anyone have any questions for me?
That was great. Thank you, Elaine.
Oh, you're
Really
welcome.
really, really informative and really useful steps. I mean, I know from my own personal experience, I've had a life coach, and it was the best thing I ever did, was invest in myself, to get a life coach. So I can only but encourage others to do the same. If you are stuck in a place, or you've got goals and you want to master your goals and bits and pieces like that, there's just some really simple things you can do. But one thing I've always learned is it's all about taking small steps. You know, it's just bit by bit by bit, and then you eventually hopefully get to your dream. So yeah, it's all about heading in the right direction, for sure. Yeah, thanks so much, Elaine, for the information. Hope to put it into practice, which is always difficult. Yeah, it's easier said than done sometimes.
Yeah.
Excellent information, beautifully conveyed. Candida has learned loads. Thank you, great talk. Yeah, it's important to work on ourselves, from Fiona. Claudia says, brilliant talk, thank you, very inspirational. Great comments. Excellent. Little steps. We'll start with 30 minutes to myself per day. Exactly. That's all it takes. All it takes is, beginning of the day. Or I actually, you talked about gratefulness. I always actually did it at the end of the day. I always found in the morning I'm not a morning person anyway, by any shape or form. So when I go to bed at night, I would always have a grateful diary, and then I would write down things in the evening when you're in bed. So yeah, that's always a good thing to do. But yeah, it's all about being grateful and trying to tackle our stresses.
I think also, just to add on to that, I mean, I do a gratitude journal, and I have done for years. I think we need to remember that, we're all a work in progress. There isn't a place where we get to that everything is just perfect. I mean, gosh, it's something that I held that belief for many years, and it's, it's another level, another devil, they say. You come up to some other bump in the road and you learn from it. So these tools that you can learn now are going to really serve you for the rest of your life. You know, life is going to be tough and challenging. We're going to come up against so many different things, and we have the power inside ourselves to determine how our life is. We're not victims of life, and I could list so many books. I think I did that last time I spoke, Louise. Actually, I was giving you all these books. But there is so much out there that can then help you. But remember, it will get tough. Even if you've done the work on yourself and you do the gratitude, it's part of being human.
And it's also being mindful as well. I think mindfulness plays a big part in all of this as well. I think it's really important to grab onto mindfulness, and that really that kind of changes your mindset as well.
Definitely.
I think that's really, really important as well. Mandy says, fantastic, found it very helpful, and will use these tips personally and in business. Great. Perfect.
I have to say, there's a little phrase, and I love this. I can't remember who said it, but how we do one thing is how we do everything. And it's so true. So if we've got some little shitty patterns going on in our business life, I guarantee you're doing them elsewhere.
Of course. Absolutely.
So, it's really interesting. So when you start to do this work on yourself as well, you notice how it opens up so much in other areas.
No, absolutely. Cool. Well, I don't think we've got any other Q&As. If anyone's got anything to add, then please pop it in. But otherwise, obviously, everyone has taken something away from the session, which is amazing. And thank you so much for such an insightful presentation, Elaine. I think it's really, really important. And I think, it looks as if everybody's got little steps to take away with them. So I hope it was useful for everyone. So
thank you for having me, and thank you for giving up your time, everyone, on a beautiful sunny day. It's hard to compete with the sun, but you're here and you're listening, so I'm very grateful to have your ears. So thank you.
Absolutely. It's a good point, actually. So we've got a little bit of a break now for the festival, the Wellness Revival Festival. So we've now, I guess you could take this as your lunch break, go and sit in the sun for a couple of hours. Our next session is at 4:00. So if people want to join us at 4:00, then please do so. And we've also got a session at 5, followed by the networking session at 6. So enjoy the next couple of hours, everyone. And thanks again, Elaine, and we'll see you soon. Bye.